guys, it's RJ. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now, in today's show, if you've ever been denied for a credit card application, I'm going to teach you a few tricks that can come in handy to help you actually revive a denied application and turn it into an application approval so you can get that card and that sign-up bonus that you're after. So if that sounds helpful to you, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and let's get to work. So we'll start out with a high-level overview of the 3 different paths your application could take. Then I'll talk a little bit about how you can turn a denial into an approval using something they call the reconsideration line. And then lastly, I'll walk you through my own personal story, having just gone through this with Chase very recently. So first up, the application process has what I would call 3 different paths. So the best case scenario is you're going to sit down, fill out your credit card application, you hit submit, the computer's going to spin for about 15 to 30 seconds, and after that you're going to get a pop-up with that, hey, congratulations, you're approved, your new card has X amount of credit limit, and your card is in the mail, should arrive in 5 to 7 business days. Now that's the best possible outcome because you got your answer very instantly, and we love instant gratification. Now the second path is what I call the delayed gratification path. So instead of getting an instant approval, sometimes you get a pop-up that looks like this or an email that looks like this, which is basically the card issuer saying, hey, we can't approve you right here on the spot. We're going to get in the lab, go do some more digging in your application, and then we'll issue a decision later.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Now, most of these notifications say they'll let you know in a few days. I have seen instances where the card issuer actually says they'll let you know within 30 days. And so what happens on this delayed gratification path, hopefully, is a few days later, a week later, whatever the email said, you actually end up getting another email notification that says, hey, we've actually been able to approve you for the card. And then you get all the card details, credit limit, card in the mail, things like that. And then the third path you have is what I call the most unhappy path, and that is the denial, in which case instead of getting an email notification later on saying you were actually approved for the card, you're going to get, unfortunately, a denial letter in the mail from the card issuer. So this is the actual denial letter that I got from Chase. I just applied for the Chase Inc. Business Cash, so I'll put this on screen, but let's walk through the letter now. So you can see right up here in bold, they have an update that says we did not approve you, which seems pretty obvious because there's no new credit cards glued to the paper. Then you go down here a little bit more. Our decision was based on the following reasons. Business structure, it was a business card, but we will touch on that reason in a few minutes. Now we're also going to tell you we used your information from your credit report to make the decision. And then if you go farther down, we also use your credit score. They give you some stats on your credit score. And very funny enough, if you turn it over, they even say if you have questions, please write to us at the return address above. Well, writing to them in that address is actually terrible advice, and I'm not really sure why they even include it on there, so don't do that. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you some actual helpful advice that you should do in any event that you are denied. So first up, let's talk about why you get this letter. Anytime a financial institution or someone uses your credit information to make a lending decision about you, they're required to inform you in writing why they made that decision. So while, yes, this definitely could have been an email and not taken 7 to 10 days to get in the mail, they only do it because they're legally required to. Now, anytime a lender is trying to make a lending decision, really what they're doing is making a risk decision. So internally, the bank or the lender has a bunch of different criteria that they're looking for by pulling your credit report, your credit score, looking at any history you have with them as a customer, using that and then making a lending decision based on those factors. So with that in mind, what are some of the reasons that you might get denied for a card? Well, with Chase, we have the classic 524, which that reason will basically say too many lines of credit open too soon. You can have one that says too many inquiries. You can have this weird one that says business structure if it's a business card. There can be things like not enough income. The list goes on and on of reasons you might see. So it goes without saying that getting it denied for a card actually sucks, but when we go through this letter, we can see there is not actually a lot of helpful information on this letter. Furthermore, actually telling a customer to write in if they have any questions seems ridiculous. So again, this letter not super helpful, so let's just get rid of that. But in the case of denial from any card issuer, but again, we're going to focus on Chase for this story, you can leverage something called the credit card reconsideration line. But essentially, the reconsideration line is exactly what it sounds like. It's a phone number through that card issuer that you can phone up and inquire about your recent denial, have a conversation with that customer service representative, and hopefully you guys can come to some sort of resolution about the denial and get it flipped into an approval. Now, while some of the reasons we listed up front for denials may not be able to be overturned, there are definitely some other reasons that you may have gotten denied that can be fixed quite easily. For example, maybe you messed up filling out your application, missed a field, left something out, typed in a wrong number, what have you. So there are ways and there are reasons that these denials can be turned into approvals. So now this is exactly what I did. I called up the reconsideration line for Chase, talked to a customer service rep, and I'm just going to tell you about my conversation I had now. So when you call into the line, you'll just tell them, hey, this is who I am, this is why I'm calling. They'll ask you some verification information. Say, hey, look, I got my denial letter. It just said, in my case, it just said business structure because, again, this is a business card. I would like a little bit more information on this reason. And then at this point, you're just going to be having a conversation with the customer service representative. So the first thing the rep asked me was a little bit more about my business, and I'd filled out the business card application as a sole proprietorship, and the category of business was real estate. So if you guys are interested, just a little bit of backstory here, and if you were really early on the channel, I'm talking here when I was like single-digit subscribers, then you might even remember this. But when the channel first started, this was actually going to be a real estate channel. Just turns out people watch credit card videos a lot more than my real estate videos. But anyways, I mentioned that because I actually own and manage 2 rental properties, so that's what I was using as my line of business for this application. So anyways, we're talking about the business, and eventually the customer service rep finds the problem. So when you're filling out a business card application, there's 2 sections for income. So there's a section for business income, and then there's a section for personal income. So it asks you business income on a yearly basis. So what I did for that, I took the 2 amounts that I'm leasing for, combined those over 12 months, and that's what I put for total business revenue. Then on the personal income line, I just put what I make personally, as I am a W-2 employee still. So what the rep found out from that was, since both mortgages are personal loans and in my name, that the computer looked at it as personal income is this, but you still have all these expenses up here for 2 mortgages. I think there's a car loan in there as well. So you can't possibly pay that plus another card. Honestly, we don't even know how you're eating right now. So because of that, it turned out to be a denial, which again still doesn't really line up with the business structure reason that they gave. But anyways, that was the reason that I got. So anyways, we found out the problem. Now the rep asked me a few more questions. She went through some of my business income and expenses. She asked me if any of these homes were affected by the pandemic. And so we're just going back and forth, having a conversation, answering some questions. You're going to get put on hold a while during this process as they keep updating your application, rerunning it, and coming back to you. So long story short, after going through all this, what the resolution ended up being was to not double count the wrong word, but essentially what we needed to do was take the rental income that I'm making and add it to my personal income as well to bring that up enough to offset those 2 mortgages. So when we did that, the computer reran it again. The rep came back on the line and said, hey, congratulations, I'm now able to approve you. Which is kind of funny because the card got approved for a $3,000 credit limit, which isn't bad. I mean, that's all I really need. But it's kind of like, hey, we still really didn't want to do this, but hey, we can do it now because the math works out. So that was my experience, but let me tell you a few other things that might be important if you're going to try this. First of all, the rep's probably going to ask you why you want the credit card or want the line of credit. Don't tell them it's because of the sign-up bonus. They probably know it's because of the sign-up bonus. So they did ask me this question, and in my case, I just said, since it's a business card, I want a way to keep expenses separate. Okay, that's good enough. It gives them a box to check on their side of things. It probably makes it a little bit easier for them to go through and help you out. Number 2 thing to do is come to the call prepared. Now, this is my first business card and first time calling the reconsideration line. I really wasn't prepared to go through all those numbers on the spot. So the rep was patient enough and bared with me while I got my docs out and did the math so I could give her some figures to plug in, but it definitely helps to be prepared. So number 3 is a really good point that's not really talked about enough. So sometimes when banks want to make risk decisions and be less risky, they might just not want to extend you any new credit. However, if you have credit cards with that bank already, it does not mean that you can't take some credit from those existing cards and move it over to this brand new card. So let me give you an example. I have 5 credit cards with Chase, which the rep also pointed out, which I thought was kind of funny. So for example, my Sapphire Reserve is a $20,000 credit limit. Like, I'm never going to put $20,000 on the Sapphire Reserve. It really just doesn't make sense. So if you call in and you're still having an issue getting approved, you can always say, hey, look, well, instead of extending me more credit, can you just take some credit from some of my existing cards and move it over to this new card so I still have the same amount of credit across my whole portfolio, but I also get the new card. That is definitely a viable solution. I don't know if the customer service rep will mention that, but that's definitely an option you can bring to the table if you're still having issues getting approved. Another thing to keep in mind here is I know waiting on this letter to show up in the mail is annoying. Again, it takes like 7 to 10 days to show up. But right when you get that, hey, we'll get back to you, there are phone numbers that you can call and try to get an update. But really, I would wait to go to the reconsideration line until the actual denial letter comes in the mail. That way you actually know the reason, or at least the reason Chase listed on the form as to why they denied you. But then once you get the letter, you have to act fairly quickly. I think you have about 30 days from the time that you get denied to actually go through the reconsideration line and get that overturned. But of course, it's not 30 days from when the letter shows up. It's actually 30 days from when this letter is dated. So if I'm looking at mine, this letter is actually dated, I think, the day I applied for the card, not necessarily the day it showed up. And lastly, don't just reapply for the card right away. Again, if you get them to overturn the denial into approval, that means it's not going to be another hard pull on your credit report because they're just going to use the same information they already had. So you might as well go ahead and save yourself a hard pull. So overall, I think my experience with the reconsideration line was pretty good. I found the customer service rep really seemed like she was coming from a place of seeking to understand the problem, learn a little bit more about the context of the situation. The context doesn't really get communicated over through an application, and we were able to work through a resolution that ended up in an approval. Now, of course, there's some things that just can't be turned from a denial into approval. 524 is always going to be one of those. If you're over 524, it just kind of sucks, but you know how it goes this late in the game. So with all that being said, turning that denial into approval, that means I have a fresh Chase Ink cash card in the mail on its way here, which means you guys should definitely press that subscribe button if you're going to be interested in that full unboxing and card review coming to you very soon. So anyways, if you like this one, guys, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, then consider subscribing to the channel, posting content just like this about 4 to 5 times per week. Also, check out the channel Twitter account, RJ_financial. If you're interested in getting all the latest credit card updates and news in a much more frequent pace than just on YouTube. My question for you guys is let me know your stories down below if you've had any dealings, success, or failures using credit card reconsideration lines. Love to hear your stories and your data points on this topic. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.